Hello everyone, my name is MoFurk. I am the owner of ShadowBlade server, and this is a tutorial video on the server and how to go about the different worlds and features. Now when you spawn in for the first time, you'll be greeted with a welcome to ShadowBlade sign, as well as a little reminder to make sure to read all signs and get the world guides. Now you probably won't have to do that if you've already watched this tutorial video. Now, since we have so many worlds, it's very important to understand that the world that you spawn in is called the main world. And when you walk down the staircase, you'll be greeted by a bunch of giants right there, which start spinning really fast for some reason. Now, to your left, you will see a board with all our different worlds and buttons, which will take you to them. Now, these buttons are a common feature on the server to warp from one point to another. Now, to the front left, you'll see we have a bunch of buttons that'll take you to either our graveyard or the church, which is a feature of our vampire plugin. I'll go through more of that later. To your right, you will see, or to your front right, you will see a sign with a bunch of buttons that will explain to you, or rather that will warp you to various changing features on the server. And then to your right, you will see a signboard, or rather a board with lots of signs on, that will explain to you the different rules of the server, as well as a nifty little button which will give you a bunch of guidebooks, which you can use to refer to server commands or server features when you're not near the main world spawn. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a lot of worlds, so I'll go through details on each one of these worlds, hopefully so you can understand it better. Now, the first world that we have is, of course, the main world. This is the world that you are in. Now, since we do have multiverse and we do have multiple inventories, we have separated the inventories between factions and peaceful worlds and creative world. So the main world and the faction world have the same inventory. In the factions world, you can basically join and play in other factions, while in the main world, we have everything such as faction shops, PvP arenas, war hubs, etc., etc. So it's very important to understand that your inventory gets carried over from the main world to the faction world, and then from the faction world back to the main world, which means that you can go shopping in the main world and then take your items to the faction world, or take items from your faction world and sell them to the shops in the main world, as an example. Now, when you click this button, it'll basically take you back to the spawn of the main world. Now, let's go into some details about the faction world. Now, as soon as you go to the factions world, to your right you will see a hub of buttons as well. Now there are only 3 right now. There may be more added here as more and more features are added to the server. Now when you spawn in the faction world, you can click any of these buttons to either go back to the main world, go to our public nether portal, or go to the faction shops. Now when you click on the faction shops button, it will take you to our shops, which happen to be in the main spawn world. As you can see, we have the ShadowBlade logo up there. And as soon as you spawn near the shops, you will have the option to either go back to spawn, or go back to the faction world from where you came. Now this is basically a circular mall here with a circular walkway, and you have basically multiple shops, which we'll add later. We'll talk about those later if we have to, but this is basically generally just shops. Now you can go back to either the spawn world, which is what I'll do here, and then go back to the factions world, or you could basically just click on the factions button directly. You don't have to take the the long way around. To your left of the spawn, you will see a vampire-friendly hangout booth where you can either share blood with other future fellow vampires, maybe, if you're returning them, or you can basically stand here if it's too bright and you need to warp somewhere, because as vampires you have superhuman powers, like you don't get any fall damage, but you're still vulnerable to sunlight, so you can only roam the world during the night, or possibly just roam in the forest. Now, as you walk down this walkway, you will see a bunch of signs which will explain to you what this world is about, and some details about, this world, like some of the mechanics. What does lava do? Do Enderman grief? Are chests protected? Etc., etc. Now, when you walk further down the stairway, you will see a bunch of buttons that will take you to the various drop zones, the wilderness drop zones, we like to call them. So right now you are in the faction safe zone. You are inside or within the walls of the faction spawn. In order to start building your massive, gigantic, marvelous magnificent base, you will have to go to a drop zone. So when you click on any of these buttons, it will take you to a particular drop zone, which is basically the difference between a safe zone and a war zone. So as you can see, I'm in the safe zone now, and now I'm in the war zone. So, wow, that person is breaking the rules. I should have known that. Okay, so don't do what that person did right there. That's against the rules. So the rules are mentioned right here when you spawn. It's like no TNT near the war zone, no 1x1 towers, no floating mob spawners, and no camping, and go far away to build, which this player clearly ignored. Now you will have access to this little pool of water, which you can jump down. Now you've entered the war zone, which means you are vulnerable to player attacks. In order to build, you will have to go all the way out of the war zone into the wilderness. Now once you get there, you should be able to see a wilderness sign in chat. That means that you can actually start breaking blocks and start building. Now let's go back to the spawn world and go to our second world, which we have on the list, which is the plot world. Now the plot world and survival world are peaceful worlds. The only PvP world with PvP on is the factions world, and the inventory is shared with this main world. The inventories are shared between the plot world and the survival world. They are a separate group. So if you don't like factions and you want to basically build in peace and you want to show off your survival building skills without the threat of getting griefed, you basically go to the plot world. And since PvP is off, it may be something you're looking for. Now, it mentions here that the inventory is different from the main world and the faction world. The plot world has its own inventory. So when I go there, you basically spawn inside a realtor's or a real estate office. Now in this office you can purchase land, or not purchase, rather, you get one plot for free. So you can click this button and you get the plot for free. Now you have a range of options here. First of all, it welcomes you to the plot world. Then you have a button which will automatically give you a plot if you want it, and you can also basically go downstairs using these lifts, walk to a plot, and then type /plot claim to claim that plot. If you don't want to be assigned to one automatically, say if you have a friend and you want to build right next to his plot, you will basically go to his plot or TP to him, find a plot next to him that's vacant, stand in the plot, then claim that plot. So that's the way you can go about that. Now, since the inventory is different from the main world, you need materials to build on your plot. First, let me show you what the plots look like. So if you basically jump around these windows, you can see this massive landscape of plots. Now, plots are given in a circular fashion around the spawn, which means that you will get the closest plot to spawn if you're the first player. So we're hoping to see some really nice builds from new players on these plots, which are right next to spawn, so it creates that, metropolitan sort of feel. But yeah, these are really high valued plots right here. Really expensive, one of the more expensive properties that you'll find on the server. And you can also add a friend to your plot. Now, you can type /plot add and then the name of the player. Now, bear in mind that this will give them complete access to your plot, which means they'll be able to access your chests, they'll be able to access your buttons and, trapdoors and doors, etc., etc. Now, in order to get materials to build, you will go to the material warp, or you will go to the material warp by clicking this button, or you can go to the peaceful shops. Now, excuse me, understand that the peaceful shops are different from the faction shops. Now, these shops will allow you to purchase materials for this world. So you can basically go to the mall, buy some blocks, and use them to build if you have the money, which you can make by selling blocks. More on that later. Now, in order to get materials for free, you can basically click on the material button and it'll take you to our material warp. In front of you, you will have a bunch of options. You can either go to the lumber farm for logs, the desert chamber for sand, or the public mine for mining ores and stone for your plot. The plots themselves do not have any ores under them. So you can either go back to you can either go back to the plot world or you can go back to the main world. I'll take you back to the main world to give you an idea of how to go back to the plot world. So here we are back in the spawn world, which is also called the main world. And you can basically go back to the plot world right here. Now, once you click Get a Free Plot button, it'll take you automatically to the plot that is right next to the spawn, as you can see here. That is the real estate building that we were in a second ago. And outside your plot, you will see ID and then your name, or rather who the owner of the plot is, and then you can basically just start building with the resources that you have gathered. So that's pretty much it for the plot world. Let's walk back to the real estate building and go back to the main world, or you could just type in /spawn. It will take you back to the main world. So you can click this button here, and now we are back to the main spawn world. The next world we'll talk about is the survival world, which is basically also a non-PvP world, a peaceful world where you can build in basically vanilla Minecraft. It's like the vanilla experience, except that you can use items such as a shovel and chest to create protection. So there is still grief protection in the peaceful world, which means that you can protect your builds. And in order to do that, you have to watch a tutorial about that plugin, which I will link in the description and in the video below. And finally, we have the creative world, which is under construction as of now. Basically, the creative world is like the plot world. You will spawn in a spawn building, and then you will be able to choose a plot to build in creative. Now, in the future, we will possibly allow world edit to a restricted capacity, because world edit can lag the server if used too frequently. So we will more on those details later. You should visit our website www.wone.co for more information and updates on the server and a lot of its features. Now, I already mentioned we do have a vampire plugin. Which means we need to have an altar of darkness and an altar of light. An altar of darkness will basically give you vampirism. Vampirism will turn you into a vampire, and in order to use the altar of darkness, you can click this button to go to the graveyard. And we apparently have a graveyard right next to the Spleef Arena, which is kind of sad, but it is where it is. To your right, we have the altar of darkness. Now, when you need a bunch of ingredients in order to use the altar of darkness. Now, since I'm in creative mode, I already have all the ingredients, but as you can see at the bottom there, it tells you what ingredients you have used. Now, since I'm in creative, it already told me what they were, but it's basically whatever ingredients that you saw there. Now, this darkness that surrounded me basically meant that vampirism has been enabled, and after a certain period of Minecraft days, I will officially turn into a vampire. Now, the process is slow, so it won't be immediate. Now, in order to cure yourself of vampirism, if you have been bit by a vampire, you can go back to spawn and then go to the altar of light, which happens to be inside our church. Now, as you walk into the church and you turn left, you will basically see the lapis block of the altar of light. Now, when you right-click this button, it will, or rather this block, it will tell you that you feel at peace and that you have been cured of vampirism. Now we will go back to the main spawn. To your right, I mentioned we have a bunch of buttons that will take you to changing features, so I won't go into a lot of details about each one of them. One hub in particular that is interesting is a war hub. It basically connects to all the PvP arenas, Spleef arenas, etc., whatever arenas we have on the server. Now, when you click this button, it will take you to the war hub zone, which is basically a warp right next to spawn, and it'll show you, or you will see a bunch of portals in front of you that will take you to various war hubs on the server. So if I go to the war zone or the Rome war hub, it will take me to the Rome war hub, and then you can basically pick any team. Now, this does not necessarily mean you must always have 4 teams to play. You can play 1v1 if one player enters one portal and the other one enters the other one. You can play that way. So yeah, that feature is right there. If you walk back, it will take you back to the main spawn. So that's pretty much it for this server tour. If you have any more questions, you can contact me via the forums. And visit our website, www.wone.co. In the future, you will be incentivized with diamonds if you log on to the server, or if you log on to the website and vote for the server. But that is pretty much it. Also, make sure to check out the wiki. The website address is wiki.wone.co. On this site, you will basically see you will have access to absolutely everything that the server has to offer. So it's a really helpful guide on the server, so you can understand some of the commands and various features of the server. So yep, my name is Mofurk, and I will sign off now. Later.